Hit your driver further without swinging any faster. Coming to you right after this.
We have been given the scientific knowledge, the technical ability, and the materials. To ignore these great resources would be a corruption.
The launch team wishes you good luck and Godspeed. 3 minutes, 25 seconds and counting. We're still go at this time.
So we want to hit the ball further with this driver without having to swing any faster. That's a dream, but it's actually possible. How we're going to do that? 2 steps. 1, we're going to introduce the appropriate launch angle to the ball. Number 2, we're going to make sure we're not spinning the ball too much. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do that through 1 key. So how we're going to get the ball to launch the appropriate angle and not spin too much with just 1 key, and that's going to be angle of attack. Now you might be thinking, why are we trying to do this? I didn't hear any old timers talk about trying to launch the ball high and take the spin off. That's because the golf ball. I remember when I was a kid, went to the Masters the first time, didn't know anything about golf whatsoever, but I saw Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer hit these shots. They took off really low for about 30 yards, then they climbed straight up in the air, and I thought that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Little did I know, that's the way they had to hit the ball, because it was a very high spinning ball. Today's golf ball spins about 30% less. So the old masters, so to speak, were trying to launch the ball low because the ball would upshoot very quickly. In our modern ball, which spins about 30% less, we don't want to launch it low because it's not going to spin enough to get airborne, especially with a driver. So that's the reason why in our modern era, we're going to launch the ball higher and the ball is going to spin less, unless we do something funny to put spin on it, but we're not going to do that, are we? So to achieve these 2 objectives, getting the ball to launch the appropriate angle with the proper amount of spin, we have to control what's called the low point. And if you want to think of the low point anatomically, it's going to be this left shoulder joint right here. So if we can get the low point in the correct place, we can get the angle of attack on the up. It's going to make the ball not too spinny, launch that ball up nice and high, penetrating ball flight. So here's how you want to think of this. When you take a backswing, you form an angle between the lead arm and the shaft, and when you come down to the ball, at some point, those 2 are going to line up into a reasonably straight line. So theoretically, that's going to be here, and that's obviously where the left shoulder is. So what we want to do coming into the ball is make sure this left shoulder is not moving ahead of the golf ball. All right, so all you need to get started with this project is 2 alignment sticks. You see this one is lined up kind of with the back of the ball. We're going to make sure this inside stick is lined up with the inside of the left heel, and that's basically going to get this left shoulder joint pretty much in line with a golf ball, depending on how the camera's showing to you right now. And let me show you what happens if we, now of course my shoulders are tilted, but if I stand, and tilted I mean because my right arm's lower in the club than my left, but if I stand what I think's pretty straight, and I make a little arc, you see that's going to arc down. If I get to what feels a little bit more level, this is probably going to come in fairly neutral. Now if I increase my spine angle a little bit more, you can see I'm going to have an up angle attack. So 2 keys. Number 1, making sure you've got this stick in the right place. You need to use the stick until your eyes get very aware of what's really reality. Number two, make sure that your feet are, in other words, if you do this number, and if I move my front foot, I'll move the ball back. But if I move my back foot, I'll move the ball forward. So theoretically, the wider I take my stance within reason, I'm going to be helping to move the ball forward or closer to the low point. Now, as a general consideration, let's say that we could fit the hips inside the heels. Okay, that'll give you probably about the appropriate width of stance. And again, we want to make sure that we feel pretty tilted. If you look, so the left side of my face kind of goes right through the center of my body, versus if I stood more like this. You can obviously tell that's going to cut down and across, make that low point way out in front of the ball, add a lot of spin to that driver. So we're going to do the total opposite in our setup. Now, if you've never done this before and you're not sure what the feel is going to be, I would suggest you start with your grid, with your driver, and maybe like quarter swings pretty slow. So get your setup, ball position, start from there. So now we've established some setup procedures, mostly before we even swing, to help get at least the angle of attack 0. What about if we want to swing more up on it? I'm going to show you how to get about 4. So let's say we want to hit about 4 degrees up on it. How can we even calculate the approximate feel of 4 degrees up, or if it's too neutral or too much down and across? All we need to do is do a little bit of math, what I've done, and I'll show you the little drawing I did. But basically, an 1.5 tee in a golf ball box that's empty, by the way, about 5 inches in front of the ball will give you about a 4-degree angle of attack up. Please, again, make sure the box is empty, or you will probably have not a good day. So again, maybe start with little slow swings, and if you can miss that box, then start from there and make the swings a little bit longer and faster. But this will give you a good way to feel, am I swinging up, down, or too level? So in recap, if we want to hit the ball further without having to swing a lot harder, we're going to make the launch conditions change to our advantage, especially with the modern ball, by getting the angle of attack more up, which helps to decrease the spin rate and launch the ball a little bit higher. How we're going to do that? Make sure our setup's good, make sure our body angles are good, and then we can use the box to help manufacture that feel of swinging up with some feedback. We'll get it pretty quick. So if you like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, it won't hurt. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It helps us grow the channel. We appreciate you being here as always. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Get out there, get that ball launching it high, no spin.